is it like when the self really melts away? What's in that experience? Uh, it's un it's impossible to explain, and I'll just leave it at that. I could, because really the point that I'm trying to make is that um, I might do the best job possible and give you the best explanation of what that feels like, and you will hear that, and your mind will conjure a vision, an imaginary vision of what it thinks that means. And then when you go through it, it's still going to be something else entirely because the experience is outside of mind. So the mind cannot imagine what that's going to be like. And yet we find that fun, right? Like, I mean, I loved listening to those videos and I love speaking about it. So it's like this is part of the joy. If you're vibing with what's being shared right now, then try to enjoy it. Try not to get caught in the spiritual achiever that tries to get something from this other than just basking, vibing, jiving. It's a little bit like if you lay out in the sun, it's a beautiful sunny day, but you're really set on getting a tan because you have to look sexy and you have to get a little bit of color because you feel that you're pale and you're all insecure about that versus going out and getting some sun because right, you feel the difference. So it's the same thing with these videos, and what happens is that your identity shifts, but it's not intellectual. At first it is intellectual. It might even be difficult to understand because there is a seeming paradox that triggers some psychological dissonance almost. It doesn't fit with our model of reality, which feels almost painful. It almost evokes a pain response in our psyche. So at first, this might not be entering at all. The second step is that it does sink in intellectually, and we begin to grok it. It becomes like a when we've watched enough of these videos, I've certainly watched so many. You know what your teacher, your favorite YouTuber is gonna say. It's almost like you can have conversations with them in your head, and you understand everything intellectually. And at some point, that's sort of like the in-between step between the step 2 and 3, it even begins to make total sense. It becomes second nature. You've kind of heard it so many times, and you've probably talked your friends' heads off so many times about this because there's this, it's like a splinter in your mind, right? That gives you no rest. Like you really just feel like you need to understand this, you need to get there. And that's also mixed with something that is more pure. It doesn't necessarily come from a longing to come back home and avoid suffering for the rest of your life, but it actually comes from something pure and beautiful and let's call it passion. There's something here, certainly. There's something in this character that really enjoys sitting here and making those videos for you. So that step after that, and this is how far I'm going to take this model, for I do not know what happens after this step. There very well might be more steps. To some extent, this journey never ends, right? But I can tell you this much, that after the step of intellectually understanding it, at some point this actually begins to open up. And you're having a felt somatic visceral experience of what it's like, even though it's not really the character, obviously, because the character doesn't go anywhere. That might be a notion that hold on, like as the self melts away into nothingness, what happens to this body, to this character? Does it just like go on, does it kick into some sort of an autopilot while I'm gone and I'm now abiding as unity consciousness? No, it is both, right? That's the exquisite paradox that you stop taking yourself to be the dreamer. First, you didn't even know that you were a dreamer. You were you didn't know you were asleep. But at some point, you realize that you're the dreamer, and then you open up to being the whole dream and the dreamer at the same time, right? You become the scene in which you're submerged while simultaneously knowing yourself as this dream character and the entirety of the scene all at once. It's feels somewhat akin to living without a center. And the mind can't wrap its it can't wrap itself around this, right? Because what does it mean to not have a center and yet still be here? Because in some way, I am still a localization of awareness in this body mind. I am looking out through these eyes from this locum in the apparent space. And yet, there's a realization, there's a knowing, there's a felt sense of not being limited to this anymore. So, I don't know if that sheds some light on the topic, if this answered any of your questions. And most importantly, I hope that you enjoyed this transmission. I certainly enjoyed, like I said, talking about this. So drop me a comment below. Let me know how how you're experiencing all of this and where you are on the pathless path. And I'm really happy to be able to do this and speak to all of you here online. So please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because that helps me grow it and get more people on board so I can make more and more of those videos speaking to you. I'll see you later. Bye.